We're going to go ahead and get started. So first, my name is Connor Flanagan. I am the Director of Education at the Southampton History Museum, and I'll be acting as our moderator today for our program. Um, Today, we're going to be having Mary Cummings, who is a writer, historian, and is the manager of the Research Center at the Southampton History Museum. She's written for numerous publications, including the New York Times, and was the arts and editor for the principal features writer at the Southampton Press for 7 years. She's published illustrated histories of Southampton and of the 1938 hurricane. She is also the author of A Social History of Southampton Hospital, and in 2018, Pegasus Books published Saving Sin City, her nonfiction book on the murder of Stanford White and the trial that followed. And she currently lives here in Southampton, and probably the closest to the museum out of all of us that work here. She lives pretty much right on the other side of the fence. So she's very, very close by. So Mary will be giving her talk today on one of the women highlighted in our Gilded Age exhibit. So currently on display is our exhibit featuring 12 different women who lived in Southampton during the Gilded Age. And unfortunately right now, because not everybody will be able to get a chance to see them, we figured it best, why not have our curator for the exhibit talk about each of them individually for everybody to enjoy. So that's what we're going to do here today. Before I pass it over to Mary, I want to let everybody know watching, if you do have any questions throughout today's program, if you go to the bottom of the page, you'll see there is a Q&A function. You click that little button, it should bring up a new window, and then you can submit any and all of your questions right there. Once you submit your questions, right at the end of the program, I'll hop back on, I'll ask Mary your questions, and we can go from there. So with that, Mary, I will turn things over to you. Are you ready to go, Mary?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, great.
So, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me for this live online talk that's co-sponsored by the Southampton History Museum and the Rogers Memorial Library. The Southampton History Museum has an impressive collection of gowns, day dresses, and accessories from the Gilded Age. A lovely sampling of these treasures is currently on display in the exhibit High Style in the Gilded Age, Southampton, 1870 to 1930. Unfortunately, as Connor mentioned, the museum's doors are shut until the current COVID-19 crisis abates. But here we present a virtual substitute, during which one by one, the lives of each of the 12 women featured in the exhibit will be examined.
Mary, I believe you'll need to click the screen once.
Oh,
There
okay.
you go. Now it should work.
So as a research manager at the museum, my role has been to choose and describe the high-profile women among Southampton's summer colony, fashion trendsetters and occasional fashion rebels who wore the clothes and were admired, envied, and lavishly covered in the society pages of the New York and local press in the years between 1870 and 1930. As throughout those 6 decades, as Southampton transitioned from quiet village to fashionable resort, stylish women who arrived for the summer were liberating themselves from their corseted, constricting garments. For years, women of the upper classes had been covering their bodies with up to 25 pounds of petticoats, bustles, hats, and ankle-length skirts. Of the dozen women featured in the exhibit, all were wealthy, but none sailed through life on a cloud of privilege. Amidst the social triumphs, some had more than their share of stress, strife, and scandal. You can see here, at the time of the arrival of the railroad in 1870, which was the incident that precipitates Southampton's ascent as a fashionable resort, You can see that no one has yet built on the western shore of Lake Agawam, which was then known as Town Pond. It's only a few years after the arrival of the railroad. In 1875 or 1876, Nettie Hoyt spends her first summer in Southampton, boarding with her family in the home of William White on South Main Street. And what follows are a few views, progressive views of South Main Street. There's the old one, 1890. A little bit later, you recognize that house on the end there. And there's one with an automobile. Nettie was raised by her widowed father, the eminent Salmon P. Chase, a very imposing figure, but one with a very, very familiar face. During his tenure as Secretary of the Treasury under Lincoln from 1861 until 1864, he put his face on the front of every dollar bill and on the $10,000 bill as well. Despite smoldering friction with Lincoln, no doubt arising from Chase's loss of the Republican presidential nominations in 1860 and 1864 again to Lincoln, the president nominates him to be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in 1864. Chase holds that position until 1873, and no job could be better suited to his solid sense of his own superiority. As a young girl, Nettie shows artistic talent as well as a quick intellect and marvelous energy. But her father is a strict taskmaster and gives most of his attention to Nettie's half-sister Kate, a celebrated beauty who is more pliant than the willful Nettie. Kate's marriage to the wealthy William Sprague, who will later serve as governor of Rhode Island and is considered a prize catch, seems to guarantee that she will have a brilliant future in society. A false presumption, as it turns out. After weathering her difficult childhood, Nettie attends a progressive female seminary. She's tutored in French and she travels abroad. During the winter of 1866-67, she studies painting in Dresden, and in 1871, she and William Sprague Hoyt, cousin of her sister's husband, are married in what the New York Times calls, quote, one of the most brilliant weddings that ever occurred in Washington. On the screen, a typical wedding of that year, not hers. The reception is at the home of Nettie's sister and husband, then Senator Sprague, and it is attended by President Grant and all the justices of the Supreme Court. Buoyed by family wealth and social prominence, the young Hoyts are immediately embraced by smart society. When the nationwide depression of 1873 takes a toll, even among the privileged, the Hoyts remain popular and socially prominent. Obliged to supplement their income with their creativity and energy, which Nettie possesses in abundance, they see opportunity in Southampton's soaring real estate values. In 1877, they purchased property on the western shore of Lake Agawam from Augustus Halsey and build a summer cottage. The Hoyt House on Lake Agawam, which they call Windy Barn, is the talk of the town. Ever the innovators, the Hoyts defy tradition by fronting the house on the lake rather than on the road, as tradition dictates. With a Dutch gambrel roof barn for inspiration, they design a building that historian William Pelletreau describes like this, quote, "Some call it quaintly artistic, and others a monstrosity, but it is an object of interest as the first mansion erected in that locality." Close quotes. Pelletreau also remarks that it was Nettie and not her husband who purchased the land, hinting perhaps at William Hoyt's personal and financial difficulties, rumored to include a drinking problem. Pelletreau also suggests that the Hoyts are not popular among local residents. A much ridiculed attempt to rename what was then called Town Pond and instead call it Silver Lake is attributed to Nettie, providing ammunition for her critics. But despite any local disapproval of Hoyt unconventionality, Windy Barn becomes a lively gathering place for the Hoyts, for their many friends and extended family who find much to admire in the so-called monstrosity. Nettie has painted first floor wall panels with lakeside scenes and covered the floors and ceilings with red paint, adding other decorative innovations. The couple introduces a bohemian flair to the village, which is on the brink of great changes, yet still considered a backwater by many. The library, the art museum, and the Shinnecock Hills Golf Club are still 2 decades in the future, and no hospital will exist in Southampton until 1909. In 1885, the Hoyts create another stir when they sell the house on Lake Agawam to banker Charles Barney for twice what they paid for it. And then they become pioneer developers on Shinnecock Hills, joining others in acquiring acreage on which to build summer cottages to rent or sell. For themselves, they build a charming, curved arts and crafts house, already a curiosity even before they purchase an unused windmill on Windmill Lane and move it at considerable expense to their property on the hills. Indefatigable in her artistic and cultural activities, Nettie continues to paint. She illustrates popular children's books and is active in numerous charitable organizations. Perhaps the biggest cultural boost Nettie gives to Southampton, her orchestration of the Shinnecock Hills Summer School of Art, dovetails nicely with the couple's promotion of real estate in the hills. With her wide social and artistic connections, Nettie is able to persuade the celebrated artist William Merritt Chase to come to Southampton and lead the school from 1892 to 1901. Popular among New York City's matrons, Nettie is able to enlist financial support for the school from the likes of Mrs. August Belmont, Mrs. Andrew Carnegie, and Mrs. William Kissam Vanderbilt. Where there had been concern that East Hampton was dominating the region's cultural life, Southampton could now boast a nationally recognized plein-air art school. Then, when Samuel Parrish, Southampton's beloved benefactor, introduces the game of golf to Southampton with a few of his friends, Nettie becomes an influential advocate for female golfers at the club, at the Shinnecock Hills Golf Club. She manages to guarantee that the club will welcome women players, and she's instrumental in establishing a small course for women at the club, where her daughter Beatrix learns the game and goes on to win 3 women's national championships. For a while, things seemed to go smoothly for the Hoyts and for their involvement in Shinnecock Hills real estate. Meanwhile, Nettie's contributions to village life win many over, as this praise from the Mail and Express newspaper illustrates in 1887. The magic hand that has changed the waste into a well-known resort, and within whose limits there will be, within a year or two, at least 50 to 100 cottages, is Mrs. William Hoyt, close quotes. And in 1889, the Seaside Times declares, the credit of inventing Southampton should properly be given to Mrs. William S. Hoyt, that original daughter of the late Chief Justice Chase, whom chance and a love for pure air and freedom first attracted to the spot. I wonder how the local population greeted the suggestion that what had preceded the resort was a, quote, waste, and that Southampton's invention awaited their arrival. But the Hoyt marriage is a lopsided arrangement, with Nettie obliged to take the reins as her husband becomes increasingly irresponsible. By 1900, the marriage has collapsed, and William is living in Puerto Rico, where he dies in 1905 of unspecified but probably alcohol-related causes. Oddly enough, Nettie's beautiful sister, Kate, has also seen her brilliant marriage collapse amidst accusations that William Sprague is guilty of verbal abuse, uncontrollable spending, infidelity, and alcoholism. They are divorced in 1882, and Kate dies penniless in 1899. Kate comes to a pitiful end while Nettie moves on, not one to dwell on the past. Her contributions, however, are not forgotten by others, and in 1889, a wistful correspondent for the Seaside Times writes, quote, "Ah, those old days at Windy Barn. They set a pace for Southampton which has never been improved. They instituted a habit of free, fresh, joyous, outdoor life, which fashion and affectation have wrestled with in vain. These two, enjoying the great outdoors, have obviously not abandoned fashion and affectation." Nettie lives another 20 years after the death of her husband, years that are for the most part filled with her customary enthusiastic cultural pursuits. Around the time of William's departure for Puerto Rico, she abandons Southampton, but later returns to build a small cottage on Peconic Bay, where she occasionally summers until her death in 1925. In my next Gilded Age talk, I'll examine the life of a very dedicated socialite who happens also to be the next occupant of Windy Barn. So I look forward to having you all back next time. And I conclude there.
That was great, Mary. So, if anybody has any questions, again, please at the bottom, you can click the Q&A button and you can submit any questions you might have about Nettie Hoyt or any questions you might have for us here at the museum. Let's see, we got a couple questions. Let's see. So we have one. Was the Mill House on the Southampton House tour years ago?
It's long gone, I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not been on our Insider's View tour before.
No.
Would have been nice though.
Yeah, it would have been great.
We have somebody else saying, "Bravo, Mary." Let's see, somebody else saying, "Thank you for this lovely presentation." We're also live on Facebook right now, so if anybody is on Facebook, please feel free to submit questions that way. Some other questions we have was the Chase who Nettie was related to William Merritt Chase?
No, I don't think they were at all related. Her father's Chase branch was something else, Salem.
Gotcha. They just both so happen to be here in Southampton, both named Chase.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Another question. Okay, so somebody said that they loved the lecture, but they missed a few minutes in the middle, and they want to know if they'll be able to watch it again. And yes, so probably by tomorrow afternoon we'll have this ready. It'll be uploaded to YouTube and put on our website. So if you go to southamptonhistory.org, and you go to the calendar section on our top bar, you'll see there's a button that says Zoom Lectures. Click that. All of our lectures will be listed on there. You can also just search us on YouTube and you should be able to find our page where we'll have this lecture and all the previous ones we've done so far since quarantine has been going on live for you to watch. Other questions? What happened to the windmill that they moved onto the property?
It is still there. It was used by Southampton College, and now it's on the Stony Brook Southampton campus. That's where the house was.
If you drive by it now, though, I'm pretty sure you'll notice that the windmill, you might not see it, and that was because I think they've been doing repairs on it. So the blades have been taken off, so it kind of just looks like a weird house. But it is still there. I think they had plans to put everything back together this summer, but they just couldn't do construction in the winter, obviously. Another question. What is on the site of Windy Barn today?
On the west, yeah, that's a good question. It was they sold it to the Barneys. Oh, it burned. Yeah, it burned down, and I'm not sure what's on the map there now.
Gotcha. Might just be somebody else's private home at this point, or
it no doubt is. It's prime property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I think that was the last of the questions we had. If anybody else has a question, again, please feel free to submit it on the Q&A spot or in the chat or on Facebook if you're watching there. Let's see. We got another one. Oh, someone just saying these are so great, and they're saying that Mary is wonderful. How nice.
How nice. Right.
But yeah, so we want to thank everybody again for tuning in and watching. Again, please make sure to go to our website, southamptonhistory.org. If you go to our calendar page, you'll be able to see all of our upcoming programs. I'll be updating our website today with our lecture programs for the next month. Our next lecture will be same time, same place next week on Thursday at 11 a.m., all about the Sayre Barn, one of our historic structures that are on the Rogers Mansion property. Our curator registrar, Zachary Taylor, is going to be doing sort of a deep dive into the historic structure report that was done on a few years ago and talking about the history of the building itself and sort of everything all about it. So if you're interested in that, please make sure to RSVP on our website and tune in. After that, we have, I believe, a lecture planned out for every single week going forward in May, as well as a bunch of other programs. The next program you'll be able to tune in with us for is going to be on Tuesday at 11 a.m. and is going to be part of our cabin fever therapy series. That program is going to be a recipe swap. So we'll be asking people, it'll be more of a community program where everybody can jump on webcam together and talk about what are you cooking right now during these times sitting at home? Are you pulling weird things out of your pantry? Are you making crazy concoctions? Are you going to the store and trying to find the right item so you can make your sourdough bread at home like a lot of people are trying to do? Hopefully, if you want to join in and share some cooking tips, we would love that. Otherwise, we will sign off from here today. Again, thank you, Mary, for this great talk, and we look forward to the next one.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.